Who are we? What were we thinking? How did we get here? Why did we get here? These are all questions we need to ask ourselves as a country, as a community, and as individuals. This election cycle was not a normal one. Regardless of who you voted for or what political ideologies you hold, we were all duped by the system that gave us the president with the lowest approval ratings in 40 years. Based on this election cycle, there are serious philosophical and political problems that need to be addressed, such as unfounded political polarization, the lack of voter turnout, and the spread of misinformation. The first problem we will analyze will stem from unfounded political polarization, or polarization that has no basis and does not come from reliable, educated sources. An article titled Causes and Consequences of Polarization stated that party polarization has the tendency to represent extreme policy views, which leads to biased and unequal representation. More so, this current democratic process alienates those who do not identify with either end of the political spectrum. An article by Pew Research in 2016 found that about 58% of Republicans had extremely unfavorable impressions of the Democratic Party, while about 55% of Democrats had highly negative views of the GOP. It is, in my opinion, that political polarization that originates from hate and prejudice is unhealthy. However, if polarization occurs because of informed debates and the critical analysis of policy, then that is a sign of a healthy and functioning democracy. And it is important to have a functioning democracy because the very nature of American values rests upon a strong democracy-backed institution. To dispute that is to dispute the Constitution. Voter turnout played a large role in the 2016 election. According to Politico, there are about 200 million people registered to vote by October of 2016. Around 129 million people voted. The United States Election Project reported that about 58.9% of eligible voters had voted this past election, which was higher than President Barack Obama's re-election in 2012, where about 58% of eligible voters had voted. The 2016 election results weren't incredibly high or low, but in general, the US has very low voter turnout. According to Pew Research, the US has one of the least active voting populations among developed countries, with the US placed at 31 out of 35 countries in regards to highest voter turnout, with places like Belgium with 87% and Turkey with 84%, the US is lagging behind. When you have 40% of a country, around 95 million people not showing up for a presidential election, there are serious consequences. If we don't care about who's in the Oval Office or in Congress, then the issues we care about will never be addressed. The spread of misinformation played a large role in the 2016 election. From incorrect statements in the debates to your crazy aunt's Facebook page, there was no shortage of the obfuscation of the truth. These fake news articles support the idea of opinion follows truth, where the opinion of one individual becomes the truth for thousands of people. For example, one of Donald Trump's many famous quotes include, "If I were to run, I'd run as a Republican. They're the dumbest group of voters in the country. They believe anything on Fox News. I could lie and they'd still eat it up. I bet my numbers would be terrific." This quote was supposedly said in a 1998 interview with People magazine, but according to Snopes, a fact-checking website who thoroughly examined the interview, found that Donald Trump had never said that. So how did this completely false quote get around? Phil Menser, a professor at Indiana University who studies the spread of misinformation, sums up these sort of situations easily. He said, "Suppose if you like Donald Trump and hate Hillary Clinton, then it's easy for you to believe a fake piece of news about something terrible Hillary has done. And that these fake news websites often generate the same news, just changing the names to get people on either side to be outraged." According to Menser's research, there's about 13 hours between the publishing of a false news report and the invalidation of it. 13 hours is plenty of time for that article to be read by hundreds of thousands of people. This is from a nonpartisan fact-checking website called PolitiFact. PolitiFact took statements made by Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and rated them as some category of true or false. And this is done by extensive research into the validity of the claims made. And the important aspect I want to derive from this website is that about 70% of Donald's statements were in some shape or form false. Now, about 26% of Hillary Clinton's statements were in some shape or form false. When we allow lies to become the norm, at what point do the citizens know the truth? And how do we know that the president has our best interests in mind? Unless we can reassess our past decisions and continue to follow this dangerous path, our next election will be as consequential as this one. We need to revamp and rebrand our democracy. I present to you my vision of Democracy 2.0. This is a bipartisan solution for improving our democracy by making it more effective and capable. For example, news stations, they have incredible impact on their listeners' beliefs, as most liberal listeners tend to tune into liberal news outlets, while most conservative listeners tend to listen to conservative outlets. These news stations and outlets tend to have biases and will present information in that biased way. The goal of news stations should be just to inform. And if opinions are discussed, opinions from both sides of the political spectrum must be brought in and discussed, because it will allow the listeners and watchers to widen their perspectives and understand the opposing views. The president is supposed to be credible and correct as a source of information for thousands of Americans. So it is crucial that every word he or she says is true. From press conferences to interviews, the president must be fact-checked. And if there's an incorrect statement made, it is imperative that the White House have a response team to immediately correct the mistake before the information spreads. But one of the most important things that needs to be emphasized must be done within the education system. Government, voting, political efficacy, all of these things should be stressed in schools because children need to know that their vote and their dedication will be incredibly impactful in the future. But more importantly, we need to teach children about morals and character. They need to know about basic human rights and previous injustices that have occurred within our country. They need to know about respect, respecting people of a different gender, respecting people of a different religion, respecting people from a different background, respecting people of a different color. Because this will carry out with them throughout their lives, and it will change the way we think, act, and govern. Despite all these problems, the power to democracy lies within the people, you. Next time we face a cusp of making a huge decision, I want you to ask yourself, who am I? What am I thinking? How did I get here? Why did I get here? Thank you.